Everybody, welcome back to Vegas Tips and Tricks Weekly. This is part 2 of our 2023 series that we like to call Vegas 101, helping new visitors to Las Vegas and people returning to Las Vegas after maybe a period of several years kind of get a feel for the place. Last week we talked a little bit about Vegas hotels and Vegas transportation options, and certainly we didn't cover all the possibilities. And, we may return to some of those topics as the weeks go on. I do have to apologize. The show is a little late today. Normally I record this on a Friday, but got sort of busy with some other things around the house and did not get that done. So everybody's kind of getting this at the same time, and you're getting it on a Saturday night. So again, my apologies for that. Before I get started, I wanted to do a couple of things. First off, I will post a link in the show notes to another YouTube video that I happened to watch earlier this week with my wife. We watch a lot of YouTube, just kind of keeping up on current events and things going on around the world. And this happened to be something going on in Las Vegas that I thought it was worth sharing with you all. You may disagree, but there is a couple in Las Vegas, the Las Vegas Valley, who within the last, year or so, you can check out the video and it'll give you more of the details, gave birth to a child with a very, very rare genetic condition. And it's kind of a nightmare condition, to be honest with you. The child can neither breathe nor eat on his own. Was not really supposed to even survive. Was more or less pronounced, it's more or less told that, hey, we can send the child home with you. It's kind of a hospice situation. But the child is still alive. The parents have dubbed him Hulk because he has survived against all odds. But as you'll see in the video, the parents face an enormous challenge here. And it's just heartbreaking, really. So they have a GoFundMe. So if you'd like to help out a family in the Las Vegas Valley that's dealing with something crazy, they're hoping to try and create a situation where it'll be easier for them to care for the child because he pretty much requires care 24/7. And also they're looking to try to consult with some specialists, some geneticists around the world who may have some idea if there's a way to help this child. And we certainly hope there is. But I think if you watch the video, like I said, I'll link to it in the show notes below. I think it'll bring a tear to your eye. And we always like to help out our friends in Las Vegas. Okay, that's number one. Number two, I had a question that was posed this week, and I would like to, maybe we should have a question of the week. If I was really feeling ambitious this week and wasn't trying to get this video out quickly, I might have put up a cool little graphic up here that said question of the week. But every week I would like to have a question of the week. And the question we got this week was from an old, well, he's older than me, so I guess he is old. An old friend of the channel that many of you remember from way back in the Wednesday show days and the cocktail of the week days. That's your good buddy PJ Paul. Even if he is a Redskins, Commanders, whatever the frick they call themselves, fans, we're still going to give him a lot of props. And he asked a question this week that I thought was worth answering, and one that has come up over the years. And that is, Vegas has all of these showrooms and shows, and it's almost like it's a struggle sometimes to fill the time that they have available. Why aren't there more sort of Broadway type shows in Las Vegas? And you know what? The topic has come up before, and not really on this show, but on some podcasts I've listened to over time. And the answer is a little complicated. First off, by and large, Broadway shows, and you would typically hear sort of lean towards musicals, probably comedies. I mean, no one really wants to go to Vegas and go to like a 2 hour show, focusing on the tragedy of the Holocaust or something. It's not such a cheery topic. So you're kind of limited a little bit there. And the other thing is that typically Vegas shows only run about an hour, 50 to 70 minutes. And most Broadway shows are longer than that. Now, there have been Broadway shows that have been brought to Las Vegas. It's been tried. I always think of Avenue Q, which came to the Wynn a number of years ago. Didn't really do very well. There have been other shows, and they have also not done particularly well. I think The Lion King was there at one point. There was a version of Phantom there. I think that might have been a Venetian. They tend to be sort of abridged, sort of Reader's Digest versions of the actual show. Because those shows typically are 2 hours or longer, so they tend to get sort of squished down for the Las Vegas audience. And generally speaking, it has not been very successful. The one big exception to that rule was Mamma Mia, that played for so many years down, I think it was at Mandalay Bay, wasn't it? And even moved to another venue at one point for another year or so, maybe Trop. But yeah, I mean, the logistics of it, the length of the show, so you really, at least in the minds of most people who program Las Vegas shows, the idea is to kind of shrink that show down so you're not getting the full experience. And then just the history has not been very positive. So will we see other shows, will we see Broadway shows in Las Vegas in the future? Will people try it out? Yeah, I think they will. But again, the length of the show, the fact that most of what's come to Las Vegas in the form of Broadway shows, even musicals, have not been very successful. So we shall see. And I'm guessing also there's probably a reasonable cost associated with that. With an established production like that, it's going to cost you a little bit more. It kind of brings to mind the idea of Las Vegas shows in general and Las Vegas entertainment in general. So I thought maybe that would lead us into the rest of today's show. The Las Vegas show is almost cliched if you think about it. Back in the 50s and 60s, certainly. And I always create these sort of imaginary older relatives of yours. We'll call him Uncle Bill, because everybody had an Uncle Bill. Everybody in my family had an Uncle Bill because that was my dad's name, and he was an uncle many times over. But Uncle Bill went to Las Vegas back in the 50s and the 60s and the 70s even, and he went to the Vegas show. And the Vegas show, with some exceptions, and certainly you think back on the original sorts of residency, which the Elvis Presley residency at the International and later the Las Vegas Hilton. But certainly there were headliners all up and down the Strip, people like Liberace or Wayne Newton, who performed and drew huge crowds. Just like nowadays we have people like Katy Perry or maybe eventually Adele, or Lady Gaga, or in the past, people like Britney Spears or Backstreet Boys. People that have drawn an enormous audience based upon their particular fame and their particular shows outside of Las Vegas. But the Las Vegas show was kind of a thing, and it had sort of a format. And when I look back at that format, we really look now at basically something that's gone. The last two sort of real Las Vegas shows were probably the Folies Bergère at the Trop, and then Jubilee at Bally's, now Horseshoe. And the nature of these shows, I saw, I guess, maybe a couple of them. The show I saw that was most closely associated with a traditional Las Vegas show was called Splash, that played at the Riviera for a number of years. It was a good show. And that show had a sort of format, you might say. There were dancing girls, there were topless girls, at least at some points. Those were the show girls because they showed. But there were dancing girls, there were comedy routines, there were magic shows, there were jugglers, there might be some sort of stage spectacular of sorts. You would see crazy stuff. And then, I know that Splash had this very frightening, at least to me, sequence where these people, two people, rode motorcycles inside of a giant dome, which just freaks me out. I saw it on Fremont Street a few years later, and it still freaked me out. But yeah, they were kind of these variety shows, and they, if you really look back, they kind of fit in with variety shows that we saw on television, and that was one of the early TV formats as well. Ed Sullivan, Carol Burnett, those kinds of people, where it was, you had a host, and just about anything might happen on the show. You'd have little skits, you'd have musical performers coming out, and that was the old Las Vegas show, and it's gone. It really is. You still have these sorts of pseudo X-rated type shows, these topless shows that continue around the Strip and so forth. It'll be, what was it, like X Rocks or X Country, those kinds of shows where, you'll have topless dancers and people performing, classic songs, etc. But but that old school Jubilee style show is pretty much gone. And, what we have seen in recent years, fairly recent years, although it's starting to decline, it seems like, is these Cirque shows. If you've never seen anything by Cirque du Soleil, and I've not been to one of the Cirque shows in Las Vegas, something I've talked about in the past. One of these days I'm going to go. I think I'm going to go in March. I think we're going to go to MJ1. But I have seen Cirque on PBS and in various forms, and it's this sort of modern take on a circus, incredible acrobatic skills, etc. I think there's still a half a dozen Cirque shows up and down the Strip. And then shows that have had a kind of similar feel, but maybe with a little bit of a sleazy edge. And the obvious example here is, the whole is the show at Caesar's Palace, Absinthe, and they've spawned a number of additional shows like that, and that sort of edgy, sort of sexy kind of show is another one that we see pretty frequently. But in recent years, Vegas has become much more about headliners, much more about residencies. You see those, again, up and down the Strip. We talked about them briefly earlier. I think obviously the most successful residency outside, I guess, of Elvis Presley would probably be Celine Dion, who had a couple of different times played out at Caesar's Palace for multiple years and was very successful. So you have those shows. You still have sort of traditional sort of magic shows and, ventriloquist shows and some things like that. So you can find almost anything on the Strip or even downtown as far as shows are concerned. The other thing I'll say about Las Vegas shows is traditionally they were pretty cheap. Maybe not the headliners, but even there, if you go way back, some of these performers were essentially appearing in a showroom where you just had a 2-drink minimum. Definitely not true anymore. Whether it be one of the big Cirque shows, a show like Absinthe, or one of the performers that you see in residency up and down the Las Vegas Strip. You're looking at $100 plus with pretty much any of these shows. Even with less expensive, sort of cheap Las Vegas shows, anymore you're looking minimum in the $50 range. So the days of, wonderful lounge entertainment for a song and a drink are gone. And the old Las Vegas show is gone, but that doesn't mean that Las Vegas doesn't still provide you with some of the most amazing entertainment options anywhere in the world. If you're going to Las Vegas, definitely check out who's going to be appearing, what sort of shows are available. You have a lot of great comics, a lot of great musical artists, and not people that are, past their prime, but people that are still very, very big in the music industry. So be sure you check that out. It's almost always worth finding out what's appearing at the Park Theater or the Zappos Theater at Planet Hollywood, because it's probably a major artist that you've enjoyed. And so it's a good way to spend some time in Las Vegas without gambling. And even if you spend $100 a ticket, you may ultimately save money over the price of playing the slots. All right, anybody have any questions about Las Vegas, please do leave them in the comments section below. We read every single one of those and try to respond to every single one of those. And we'll be back next week talking more about Vegas 101, talking about more what you need to know if you're going to Vegas for the first time or you're going back to Vegas for the first time in some time. All right, until then, I hope that you have a great, lucky, and healthy week. We'll see you all again real soon. Bye-bye.